she sits in front of her computer, recording a specific message to herself, and prepares a whole bottle of sleeping pills, labeling them with a reminder to take them all before going to sleep so she can leave this world peacefully. The reason she is doing this is because she has a disease even more despairing than cancer, Alzheimer's. She wants to act while her memory holds, while she still has control over her mind, using this method to preserve her final shred of dignity. In her eyes, if she can no longer recognize her loved one, unable to string together a sentence, or relying entirely on others for care, that fate is more painful than death. So she chooses, while still in control, to give her life a dignified end. Today's recommended movie is Still Alice. It takes us deep into the reality of those living with Alzheimer's. It's not just about forgetfulness, it's about memory being stripped away, the helplessness of the self being consumed, and the struggle to maintain one's dignity. Alice's life was once the picture of perfection. At 50 years old, she is a professor of cognitive psychology and linguistics at Columbia. With her solid academic background and articulate teaching style, she is deeply admired by her students. She and her husband, John, also a professor, have been married for 30 years. Their relationship is as strong as ever. Their 3 children each have their own pursuits. Anna, the eldest, studies law. Her son, Tom, is in medicine, and Lydia, the youngest, is pursuing acting. Yet, the family always gathers when it matters. Not long ago, Alice celebrated her 50th birthday. The family came together to celebrate, and although her youngest couldn't make it, the room was filled with laughter and joy. It was incredibly heartwarming. To the outside world, she possessed wisdom and a perfect fulfillment in both career and family. She had reached an enviable peak in life, but fate always strikes when you least expect it. When she was standing at the podium, lecturing on a topic she knew inside out, her mind suddenly went blank. She got stuck on a term she used every single day. Dozens of eyes stared right at her. Alice tried to stay calm and laugh it off, but when she finally remembered what to say, her back was soaked in cold sweat, and a sense of unease was quietly creeping in. But the real panic actually began on a morning run. Alice was jogging through the neighborhood she'd lived in for 20 years. The moment she turned a corner, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. The street looked as familiar as ever. The coffee shop sign, the neighbor's flower bed, the traffic light at the intersection. But they felt like a jumbled puzzle, and she couldn't piece together the way home. She stood there, completely lost, until fragments of memory barely pieced together a vague direction, and she stumbled her way back home. Her husband, John, was just about to leave. He stopped for a moment to affectionately ask how her speech went, convinced that with her abilities, there was nothing to worry about. John had promised to stay home with her that night, but he suddenly received an urgent notification from the university. An important matter required his immediate attention. After repeatedly promising Alice he'd be back early, he rushed off to campus alone. During this time, Alice had actually sensed something was clearly wrong, but she never told her husband about it, thinking that perhaps it was just caused by recent exhaustion. The next day, Alice went to see a doctor alone. She described all the symptoms she'd been having in detail to the attending physician. The doctor initially thought it might be menopause, but she has to wait for the results to be sure. Yet, the body never lies. Hidden signs begin to surface in her daily routine. Alice is bustling around the kitchen, rewriting the recipe on the chalkboard over and over. One moment, she still clearly remembers making the roast chicken the kids love. The next, she freezes in place, unable to recall what to do next. She has to check her phone for the recipe step. At the dinner table, she calls her son's girlfriend by the wrong name. Seeing the girl's awkward smile, Alice forces a smile in return. Sitting nearby, her youngest daughter, Lydia, seems to sense that something is off, but keeps her doubts to herself. When the test results finally come in, the doctor's expression turns grave. He notes that Alice has intermittent memory loss, and more critically, the decline is inconsistent with her age. To pinpoint the cause, the doctor recommends more in-depth testing, specifically to screen for Alzheimer's disease. Although rare in younger patients, Alice's symptoms point to this possibility. Upon hearing this, Alice's heart instantly tightened. That night, Alice tosses and turns. Even after taking sleeping pills, anxiety engulfs her like a tide, leaving her unable to breathe. She hesitates for a long time, before gently waking her sleeping husband, whispering that something is wrong with her. But groggy from sleep, he doesn't take her words to heart, dismissing them as mere sleep talk. But when Alice summons the courage to say she might have Alzheimer's, her husband refuses to believe it. Only then does Alice confess her recent episodes to him. Though not yet officially diagnosed, she is filled with terror. Her husband finally senses the despair in her voice, and realizes the gravity of the situation. He quickly pulls Alice into a tight embrace, trying to comfort his weeping wife. The next day, John went with Alice to the hospital to get the test result. The doctor finally confirmed the diagnosis. Alice had early onset Alzheimer's disease, but the cruelest part was that there was a 50% chance of passing it to the next generation. The moment they heard the result, they both fell into silence. Alice felt a chill run through her. Her mind was first flooded with deep fear about her own condition, which was quickly overtaken by a heavier worry. The thought that her 3 children might face the same risk of disease was agonizing for her. That day, Alice called all 3 children home, but when she actually faced them, she couldn't bring herself to say it. Seeing their parents' solemn expression, Lydia thought they were announcing a divorce. Alice quickly denied it. Lydia then asked if someone was sick. Only then did she finally confess that she had early-onset Alzheimer's. Lydia admitted she had already sensed it, because on Christmas Day, Mom hadn't recognized Tom's girlfriend. Then, Alice dropped even heavier news. The gene for this disease has a 50% chance of being inherited. She and John were full of worry. They suggested the children get tested. As she spoke, Alice couldn't stop apologizing, as if the illness and risk were her fault. As her condition gradually worsened, Alice struggled more and more with her teaching. She began making frequent mistakes in class, losing the logic of her lesson plan. This not only disrupted the flow of her lectures, but also constantly embarrassed her in front of students. These strange behaviors soon led to dissatisfaction among the students. Many complained to the administration, saying they couldn't follow her chaotic lectures. After receiving the complaint, the department chair called Alice to his office. Alice hurriedly apologized and eagerly promised to make adjustments soon. Noticing how haggard she looked, the department chair asked with concern if there was trouble at home. Pressed by his question, Alice couldn't hide it any longer and confessed her diagnosis. She immediately added, however, emphasizing that her condition was still manageable and that she was fully capable of continuing to teach. The chair heard her out but advised her to step down. In the end, faced with reality and pressure from the school, Alice was forced to bid an early farewell to the career she had built over years. The gloom of her retirement hadn't even lifted when Alice received a call from her daughter, Anna. On the line, Anna shared the bad news regarding the siblings' genetic test results. She had unfortunately inherited Alice's Alzheimer's gene. The news hit Alice like a sledgehammer to the heart, but Anna quickly added that Tom didn't carry the gene, and Lydia had decided she didn't want to know her result. Hearing this, Alice was overcome with guilt. She felt she had failed her daughter. Later that day, Alice went for a run alone, hoping exercise would help slow her symptoms. When she passed the frozen yogurt shop on the corner, she found herself stopping. She ordered her favorite treat and sat alone by the window, watching the world go by, lost in thought. She sat there for a long time. It wasn't until evening that Alice returned home. John was worried sick since she'd been out of touch for hours, but what upset him even more was that they had plans to meet friends for dinner, but Alice, having an episode, had completely forgotten about it, causing them both to miss the engagement. Facing John's frustration, Alice became emotional as well. Finally, Alice voiced her inner fears. She was terrified she wouldn't remember anyone's name or be able to handle the complex social interaction. John tries to comfort her, saying she's actually been doing quite well lately, but Alice insists that the word hovering on the tip of her tongue just won't come to her. Every time her memory stalls like that, it feels like a needle pricking her deep inside, reminding her that her life is spiraling out of control, leaving her feeling utterly helpless. The next day, Alice visits a nursing home on her own. A staff member walks beside her, enthusiastically listing the facility's benefit, but she barely hears a word, her gaze fixed on the patients around her. They sit there with vacant stares, and even their slightest movement are quickly checked by the staff, terrified that an accident might occur. Witnessing this scene, Alice feels a heavy weight in her chest, an indescribable wave of distress. Those confined figures and hollow eyes seem to foreshadow her own terrifying future. After returning from the facility, Alice's fear intensifies. She frantically types her daughter's name into her phone, along with her street address, turning memories once etched in her mind into fragments saved on her phone, terrified that one day, she'll forget them all completely. But the threat of memory loss haunts her night. Insomnia becomes her new normal. She begs her doctor to increase her dosage. It's the only sense of security she has left, but the relief from the medication is fleeting. So Alice sits down at her computer and records a video message. It is a final instruction prepared for her future self, before she forgets. She gives clear directions in the video. Go to the dresser with the blue lamp in the bedroom. In the back of the top drawer, there's a bottle of pills. The label says to take them all with water. She emphasizes, swallow all the pills, then lie down and sleep. And she must never tell a soul. This is a video she recorded for her future self, back when she could still recognize her family and remember the way home, but already foresaw the day she would forget everything. She feared becoming a burden to others, feared losing the pride she once held, and was terrified she wouldn't even remember she wanted to die. These instructions, prepared in advance, became her way of fighting back, the last bit of control she had over a spiraling life. After recording the video, Alice had a bracelet custom made. It was a physical reminder intended for her rapidly fading memory. Then, she slid open the glass balcony door, gazing out at the boundless ocean. The tide was silently sweeping over the sand. She walked alone along the shore to clear her mind. She sat quietly on a rock for a long time, her figure radiating an inescapable loneliness. John's John saw her dejected figure from a distance and immediately ran over, silently staying by her side. This couple, who had loved each other for 30 years, was now facing a massive ordeal together. One day, Alice and John were getting ready for a run. She suddenly said she needed to use the bathroom, turning to go back inside. But the moment she pushed open the door, she was instantly disoriented. In the home she had lived in for decades, she couldn't recall where the bathroom was. She even ran straight down to the kitchen, opening doors one by one to check, but couldn't find what she was looking for. Finally, a warmth began to spread through her pants. Sensing something was wrong, John went down to find her, and saw what had happened. In that moment, she completely broke down. The once elegant and confident linguistics professor could no longer manage even her most basic needs. She was overwhelmed by a tidal wave of devastation. After learning her mother's condition had worsened, her youngest daughter, Lydia, made time to come back and visit her. Alice confided in her daughter, saying she still had many lingering worries. She wanted John to take a long sabbatical and rest, and hoped Anna would have her baby soon, and for Tom to graduate. But her biggest worry is Lydia. She truly hopes her daughter will study drama, so even if she doesn't act later on, she can at least teach, or run a studio, something to fall back on. But Lydia immediately refuses, firmly saying she wants to make it on her own. There is no right or wrong in this dispute. Beneath the mother's stubbornness hides a deep fear of the coming farewell. She fears she won't remember anything, and that her daughter will be left without a safety net. But the children are grown now. They just want to live on their own terms, free from their parents' plans, until one day, the whole family comes to watch Lydia's play. As Lydia pours herself into her lines, her clear voice and solid acting instantly captivate the audience. Every emotion she conveys is powerful. Applause erupts from the crowd, sweeping through the theater like a wave. Alice sits in the audience, tears already filling her eyes. Only now does she realize how brilliant her daughter truly is. Watching Lydia shine on stage, her heart swells with pride. When the curtain falls, the family rushes backstage to congratulate Lydia. The rift between mother and daughter has quietly melted away. The pride in Alice's eyes has become the warmest and firmest validation of her daughter's choice. Later, John takes Alice for a checkup. By this point, Alice's memory has faded heartbreakingly. She can only recognize simple animal figures on the card. Even the name of the husband, always by her side, has become a blur. John is deeply worried. In the days that follow, Alice refuses to surrender to her illness. She not only looks up information to research Alzheimer's, she even began preparing for a special speech. She shared the content of her speech with her daughter Lydia over a video call, the words filled with her resolve to defy fate. This speech was her final outcry against oblivion. When she stood at the familiar podium again, she was more nervous than ever before. The audience was packed with people, longtime colleagues, former students, family members who came just for her, and many others suffering from Alzheimer's, tormented by the same disease. She used a yellow highlighter to mark her place as she spoke, but as she went on, she dropped her speech notes on the floor. Everyone watched her nervously. Alice flusteredly picked up the pages, yet still managed to make a joke. Then she calmed herself and continued sharing. Her lifetime of accumulated memory used to be her most precious asset, but now they were being stripped away. The disease made her feel ridiculous and incompetent, but that wasn't her true self. It was just the condition of the illness. She confessed that her greatest wish was that the next generation wouldn't have to bear this pain. She also emphasized that she was still trying to live. She had a family she loved and things she wanted to do. Though she often blamed herself for her confusion, she still had moments of joy. When her voice fell silent, the crowd rose to their feet. Tears and admiration mingled in the applause. Every sound carried a deep resonance for this brave woman. Just when Alice needed care the most, John brought up news of a job transfer. He was offered a position in Rochester. He wanted to take Alice with him to start a new life, but Alice firmly opposed it. She refused to leave the home she'd lived in for decades. Besides, their eldest daughter was about to give birth, just when she would be needed most. Alice hoped John would postpone the job for a year, but John helplessly explained that his new job wasn't in academia, so taking a sabbatical wasn't an option, and from a financial standpoint, they simply couldn't afford to wait. Alice wanted to argue, but the words stuck in her throat. Her failing memory left her suddenly speechless, and so, the discussion was put on hold. That night, Alice couldn't sleep. She realized her phone was missing. She got up in a panic to search for it. She turned the room upside down but found nothing. The noise woke John. He asked Alice what was wrong. Alice frantically explained that she had an alarm set for 8 a.m. with a reminder for a question she had to ask. She had to find it right now. John tried to calm her down, saying he'd help her look in the morning, but she wouldn't listen. Alice begged him to help her, terrified that by sunrise, she'd forget she was even looking for it. Seeing his wife so panicked, John pulled her into a helpless embrace, until she slowly calmed down. When John finally found the phone, the reminder turned out to be from a month ago. From that point on, Alice's condition worsened rapidly. She grew more haggard by the day, her former radiance fading away. Under Under the grip of Alzheimer's, Alice frequently flashed back to her childhood. It was a typical symptom of the disease, because the brain first destroys the areas responsible for short-term memory, while temporarily sparing long-term memory. So while she couldn't remember recent events, fragments of her childhood kept surfacing. She would stare into the mirror, trying to find a sense of control in her familiar face, but seeing only fear and helplessness in her eyes. She was undergoing a cruel transition, from self-doubt to forced acceptance. Her intellect, once her pride, in the face of Alzheimer's, proved devastatingly fragile. One day, John gently woke Alice, telling her he had good news. He patiently helped a groggy Alice get dressed, and then rushed her to the hospital. Anna had given birth to twins. As Alice looked at the babies in her arms, she was overcome with emotion. Their arrival was like a ray of light piercing the gloom, instantly healing her exhausted, weary soul. But this warmth didn't last long. Alice's condition continued to spiral out of control, her memory fading at a visible rate, continuing to decline. Now, more than ever, she needed her family's company and care, but reality stood in the way. Anna had just had her babies, and had no energy to spare for her, while John was about to take a job in another city, unable to be by her side all the time. As they struggled to find a solution, they thought of Lydia, who was living far away. This conversation was overheard by Alice, who had just woken up. She realized with painful clarity that she had become a heavy burden on her family. Even as her memory faded, Alice insisted on video chatting with Lydia often, asking again and again about her work. Her voice was filled with unconcealed concern, but when Lydia learned her mother was home alone, she couldn't help but worry. After they hung up, Alice started tidying up the folders on her computer, and unexpectedly found the video she had recorded for herself long ago. She watched the entire message patiently. A flicker of clarity returned to her clouded eyes. She followed the video's instructions, setting out to find the bottle of pills, but as soon as she got upstairs, she forgot what she was there for. She tried several times, but her failing memory kept interrupting her. Finally, she carried the laptop into the bedroom, and finally found the pills in the drawer. Clutching the bottle, she walks into the bathroom, ready to take them. Suddenly, the sound of the front door startles her. Her hand trembles. The pills scatter across the floor. Alice freezes. She blinks, staring at the mess on the ground, unable to remember what she was about to do. Those scattered pills mirror her fragmented memory, broken pieces she can never put back together. And the woman in the video, the one with such desperate resolve, has also completely vanished into the void of her disease. Just when Alice needed constant care the most, her youngest daughter, Lydia, put her career on hold and returned home to look after her. John was incredibly relieved. From then on, Lydia rarely left her mother's side, yet Alice's memory continued its irreversible decline. She often failed to recognize her own family, her eyes growing vacant. Lydia sat by her side, reading a play, and though Alice couldn't understand the words, she sat there quietly. When Lydia asked what the story was about, Alice answered slowly. The disease may have stolen her intellect, but it couldn't take her ability to feel. She could still sense the warmth of her daughter's company, for love was etched deep into her soul. Even as her memory faded, that instinct for connection never disappeared. Lydia's return was the one steady comfort in this ordeal, an anchor for Alice's drifting life. While Alice's vacant stare and fading mind made the long watch heavy, it also made it precious. The memories devoured by the disease, the self that dissolved in time, all seemed to find a final home in her daughter's patient love. And so, the film concludes. Alice's story is actually a prophecy regarding the life journey of every ordinary person. We will all eventually grow old in time, and inevitably forget certain faces and moments as the years pass. There may even come a moment when we face the collapse of the self, eroded by the passage of time or disease. But this movie clearly tells us that our true identity is never defined by what we remember, but by those who love us. Just like Alice, she may have forgotten her status as a linguistics professor, forgotten the core arguments of her thesis, or even the names of her loved ones, but she will always be Tom, Anna, and Lydia's mother, and John's wife. She is the one tightly wrapped in love. The warmth behind the name Alice will never fade just because memory dissipates. Those who love her deeply will carry her memory forward and tell her story to the next generation. And that is the ultimate answer to oblivion. Still, Alice ultimately teaches us that true strength isn't about never forgetting, but about holding on amidst the flood of oblivion to the ability to love and be loved. True eternity is not about remembering everything, but about becoming a beloved presence, forever vivid in the hearts of others.